I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending September the 15th, where the cattle industry had a small victory this past week. It took till the late hours on Friday before they ever got to really realize it, but we did see higher fat cattle. Not sure how many actually sold that way. It's not going to be enough to really help us stay current, but I tell you what, if you want these cattle feeders to play hardball, just take their basis away from them and they'll figure out a way to make these packers come to their milk. But look at the board for last week. Live cattle futures, the October contract, Monday was down 12 cents, Tuesday down 92, Wednesday back up $1.27, Thursday down 62 cents, and Friday up 82 to end the week with October live cattle at 107.75, up 43 cents for the week. Feeder cattle October contract, Monday was up 92, Tuesday down 20, Wednesday up 47, Thursday basically steady, just down 2 cents, but Friday up $1.05 to end the week with feeder cattle October at 150.65, up $2.23 for the week. Now you look at the fat cattle trade, all through the week basically had nothing, just a trickle here and a trickle there, wasn't amounting to anything. All the way through Thursday's sales, less than 17,000 head had sold, and your weighted average on those on a live basis was right around 104.5, and the dressed was near 167. But late Friday, after business hours, after pretty much everybody had given up on trade, we had some 106 trade live, and in pretty much all the areas. I noted that they had some in Wyoming that way, Kansas and Texas, Nebraska. Everybody was getting some 106. Not sure how widespread it was or how much volume we're going to get. It's likely going to be about the third week in a row that we've sold half or less than half what we need to sell to stay current. And I know we've been current here for a long time, and we probably have been pulling ahead, even though we're getting into some bigger carcasses and more market ready cattle. But we can't continue to do this, guys. We're going to have to start selling some more cattle. But your packers showed this past week that they needed some cattle. And like I said earlier, once you took the basis away from these cattle feeders, they got a lot harder to trade with. They weren't counting on backing up $1 and then gaining $2, $3, $4 on their hedges. But yeah, we've got a negative basis going on right now, and they're really digging in and resisting. They're not wanting to take less money because they know they're going to have to take another buck or two off of that whenever they settle out for their hedges. But you look at your box beef cutout values for last week on the average of the week's trade. Choice cutouts at 191.03, down $1.32. Selects at 188.50, down 182. Still running a very narrow spread between choice and select of $2.53, but pretty good movement there, almost 800 loads, and that's a good positive sign there. But the slaughter was decent. We'd like to get closer to that 600,000, but for last week it was 583,000, but that's still 26,000 more than the same week a year ago, and we couldn't really test against last week because we had that Monday holiday. But your actual dressed steer weights for the week ending September the 2nd were higher again, up to 890 pounds on the average of a dressed steer, which is getting pretty sizable. That was 3 pounds more than the previous report, but we will have a little bit of shake-up now because the next report that comes out will be for that holiday week, and it'll kind of throw things haywire a little bit. I would like to talk a minute about this past weekend. I was able to go up to Billings, Montana, and speak on a panel for the U.S. Cattlemen's Association Producers Forum. And I tell you what, that's not the biggest association by any means, but I tell you what, their voice carries, and it carries up on the Hill in Washington, D.C. They're doing a lot of good there, and I'm not talking about NCBA, and I'm not talking about RCAF. I'm talking about the United States Cattlemen's Association. and they are going up there and they're making a lot of noise, and they're getting some things worked out, working on several issues, but none more important than working on trying to delay the ELD or electronic logging devices for 1 year for livestock haulers. Now that's something that's very, very important. I've got a friend that's been hauling freight, and he says these ELDs, they're just miserable, even for just a freight hauler. You know, you got to drive when you're tired. You can't drive when you're awake, and just imagine trying to do that with cattle on board. And you talk about being rough on livestock, you know, have to pull over and sit there waiting on your time to pick back up so that you can keep going on down the road. And especially when it's hot, you know, what are those cattle going to do? Stand there and pant and shrink. And if you have to offload those cattle, then those places are going to fill up with disease, and it's not going to work at all. It's going to really throw a wrench into our whole livestock marketing business here, and we can't run a bull hauler like you can you know, somebody hauling boxes of widgets or something like that. It's a big deal. Well, late last week, included in a bill there to delay this for 1 year, it passed the House. Now, you got to work hard on getting it to pass the Senate. It was a very narrow margin that it did pass the House, and that USCA was working hard on getting that done, and they were very instrumental in being able to get that to pass the House. But if you know some people that's got any pull, you might want to write your senator, talk to them, talk to your politically motivated guys within the industry. But we've got to get that bill to pass through the Senate, so we have another year on trying to convince people that have no idea how this ELD deal on your livestock haulers will not work for our industry, and it's got to be changed somehow. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but we've got to be able to continue to do business like we've been doing, moving cattle across this country here. But you look at your feeder cattle, your auction feeder cattle receipts for last week. We had a big week. Remember, the market come up and everybody was ready to sell some cattle. We'd had a couple weeks there that were really light as the market was going down. Not sure why people want to sell on a market that's $2 or $3 higher when they resisted to sell 2 weeks in a row where it was $2 or $3 lower. But it makes them feel better anyway. But auction receipts were 21% higher, or around 40,000 head of reported auction receipts, more than the same week a year ago. Now, so you guys that are doing the analyzing on the cattle on feed report when it comes up for September, you might want to remember that. Placing several cattle in September, so you might want to look at that before you start putting numbers out that you just pull out of thin air. But a big week of marketing, which is it's a big deal that the market was that much stronger when we had that many more cattle. But your cash feeders were firm to $5 higher. Some of your calves were as much as $10 higher. It's time for calves. Guys are getting ready. We've got some wheat pasture already up. You see a green horizon as you're driving through the southern plains here, as that wheat's starting to come up already. And a lot of years we wouldn't have even tried to scratch it in yet. But down in the southeast, we did see some receipts curbed due to Hurricane Irma there. But still our receipts were that much heavier. If we hadn't had that storm coming through there, no telling how much heavier the receipts would have been in the auctions compared to the same week a year ago. But you know, guys are putting their orders in to those shippers across the southeast and get some calves brought in here. I know a couple of weeks ago when I was out there at Bluegrass Stockyards, I commented on how well those backgrounded yearlings were selling there. But I tell you what, the light calves did look like a deal, guys, and they're good enough to go anywhere. So if you know some shippers out there, you know some order buyers, you know, get in touch with them, and you can get some cattle that are sure enough fancy enough for your operation, all solid colored. You know, you could get all black if you want to. I'm not sure how that is really going to help you out, but solid colored cattle without too much ear. but still got some hybrid vigor and a little bit of cross in them to really let them grow. And whenever you get ready to feed them, you can hang 15 or 1600 pounds on them like guys are wanting to do these days. That's your real-time index on Beef Market Central, based on an 800-pound steer, ended the week last week at 149.91. That was up $2.87 compared to the end of the previous week. So that goes along with your firm to $5 higher. You look at some quotes there. Tom Fry out of Creston, Iowa there, he sent me a text and told me about some cattle that sold, including in there was a load of 764-pound steers at 165 1/4. Awfully impressive sale there. Another individual quote out of Lexington, Nebraska. They had a big string of heavy 8-weight cattle there, like 485 head of them, weighing 887 on the average there at 155.75, and that happened just before 1 o'clock Friday afternoon. So that's your week's markets from my home DV auction office here in Canyon, Texas. We'll talk to you next week.